Warning: the following podcast features views and opinions that are likely to trigger the extreme fanboys and fangirls who disagree with them. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome back to another edition of Hot Takes with Billy Biz, the farewell season brought to you by Season 3 of Reboot It on YouTube. Today we are talking, I don't know if it's the most hated entry in the Fast and Furious. It's certainly not a lot of people's favorites, but we're going to figure out why. We're talking Too Fast, Too Furious, and with me from, it's a real thing, I promise you, the Deep Blue Sea podcast, also movie, films, and Flix, my old buddy from the Wizard World days, mock. I'm going to mock you by saying your name incorrectly, Mark HOFMEYER.
I'm only doing this show so I can get my cigar cutter back from you.
It's been so long, and that's such a deep cut to this movie that I feel like no one even remembers at this point. Any movie with a cigar cutter is awesome, by the way.
We were at a convention, and I had a cigar cutter in my pocket because you need it on convention floors. Like when
of course.
I ask you, what do you need on a convention floor? Cigar cutter. Everybody in the business says it. Like everyone knows. So one day I'm walking around, my pockets are empty. And then you look at me, you kind of go, hey, hey, hey. And then I was like, I didn't pull it all together. And you've had it ever since. You've had my cigar cutter, man. I've been hungry to get it back.
I love to reenact Mission Impossible 2. Any chance that I get, any great cigar cutter references that I can make, cigar cutters. I'm glad
Kramer has a great cigar cutter fight.
I'm glad you're on the show, man, because you have, I don't, they're not even hot takes. They're just like the weirdest outside the box rankings list articles I've ever seen. You just did, as of this recording, a seating chart for Con Air.
I had to ask the actors. So I did it all. And there's a lot of actors in it that don't have names. And so you're looking at it, you're like, okay, I know who Diamond Dog is. I know who Cyrus is. But there's people in the background that are never mentioned. And in the credits, there's Con number 1. Or there's Ramirez, but no one says, hey, Ramirez. So I had it about 98%. I reached out on Twitter to Blade, Ty Granderson Jones, and the guy who played Viking, Conrad Good. And they gave me the final assist for a guy named Ramirez. That's the one dude I couldn't find who got on Carson City. So I have the like 100% seating chart from Con Air. 100% correct. 100%.
I don't even think the script supervisor has that.
So my wife just stared at me staring at the screen, and she made the image too. And so it's pretty cool, but it's neat. Like on Reddit, it got over 1,000 upvotes. On AV Club, people are shared it. So Shea Serrano loves it. The people at Empire Magazine love it. So yeah, I mean, you got to hit people with things that they don't need and they're not topical at random times, and just cheer people's like. This isn't going to change everyone's life, but they'll read it and go,
Mark, I'm glad you said those exact phrasing of words, because I think Too Fast and Furious is not topical, and it's something nobody needs in their lives, but it brings a smile to my face. But before we start talking about Too Fast and Furious, there's a couple things I just kind of want to get out of the way. Before we start this episode, first and foremost, rest in peace to my man, Paul Walker. Very sad what happened to him when he passed away. As we refer to him for the rest of this episode, with that in mind, I'm kind of only speaking about his contributions to this film in the Fast and Furious. 2, the other thing I want to say is, while this episode is predominantly about Too Fast, Too Furious, I kind of feel like you can't talk about this movie or any movie in this whole franchise without kind of looking at the entire franchise in some sort of compare and contrast situation. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, I mean, it's 1 through 4 and then 5 through 8, I would say. So
I think it's 1 through 3 and then 4 through 8, excuse me. Because 4 is like the forgotten page turn.
Yeah.
On this
what if
franchise.
we did this? 1 through 3, 4, and then 5 through 8. Like that's like, so 4 is when, all right, so Justin Lin jumped on Tokyo Drift, and then he got Vin back for 4, and then 5 is when it popped off, brought everybody back, it all connected, and then it just grew from there. So you're right, maybe 4 goes into that. But I mean, the biggest thing in 4 that was at stake, there's 2 chase scenes in 4 through a mine. It's like, this is Too Fast, Too Furious, and they're speeding through an old mine. Like, it's not, I don't know. They were getting there to 5, and then they had the vault change and the Rock's sweatiness change everything.
Right. I think 4 is like just a table setter for this new regime, because that was originally when they had everyone back. They had, all the posters they're all back, and it was a little bit of a bait and switch, but I digress. I think really when I talk about Fast and Furious, when you talk about where we start with, I think it's the Fast and the Furious, and where we've ended, at least up to this point, which is Hobbs and Shaw, just kind of like the full gamut of where we've gone. And I kind of feel like Too Fast and Too Furious ultimately for me is where I was hoping all this stuff would go, as opposed to Hobbs and Shaw. We'll get there. But before we get there, let's talk a little bit about Too Fast, Too Furious. Let's go back in our Wayback Machine. Fast and Furious comes out in the summer of 2001, and I think it takes everybody by surprise a little bit. It's kind of this cheap little kind of action thriller with a bunch of, at that point, like really no names. I mean, Vin Diesel had been in maybe Saving Private Ryan. I think Pitch Black had already happened, but he wasn't Vin Diesel. It becomes this huge hit, and of course they look to make Too Fast, Too Furious. Now, Vin Diesel says, I don't like this. I want to read you a quote he said. Quote, "They didn't take a Francis Ford Coppola approach to it," meaning the sequel to Fast and Furious. They approached it like they did sequels in the 80s and 90s, when they would drum up a new story, unrelated for the most part, and slap the same name on it. He then did an interview in 2014. Now, this was, prime in the Fast and Furious Renaissance, where he kind of walks that back a little bit. And he said, I might have had a little bit more patience or belief in the long term of it. What I would say is don't walk away from it just because the script sucked in Too Fast, Too Furious, because there's an obligation to the audience. So this was one where right off the bat, we knew Vin Diesel wasn't going to be a part of it because he didn't like it. So I want to ask you, A, were you on the Fast and Furious train from the get-go? And B, if you were or you weren't, what did you think about Vin Diesel not coming back for this one?
All right, so in 2001, after I watched the Fast and the Furious, I had a 4-cylinder Dodge Shadow, and I tried my best to blow it up, just driving as fast as I could. I mean, I got that thing. So I lived in the country of Florida. It's like the Wild Wild West out there. I got it up to 115 miles an hour. A 4-cylinder Dodge Shadow.
I don't know cars, so you'll have to use terms that I understand.
A very slow. It's like riding a turtle 50 miles an hour. That's what I did with it. And so I was all in the world. I mean, I thought Vin was electric. I loved the inclusion of Michelle Rodriguez. And listen, in that one, they lose to a truck driver. That truck driver hands them their butts. And in the 8th one, or in Hobbs and Shaw, they're battling a virus that kills you from the inside out. That will kill the whole world. So in the first one, they lost to a truck driver. It was low stakes. There was a fight over a tuna sandwich. They were stealing DVDs. I mean, it was a Point Break type film that featured a very electric performance from Vin Diesel, and I loved it. And when Too Fast, Too Furious came out, and all right, so here's the thing. I'm not a hipster. Like I'm not the guy that makes hipster picks. I like to do weird data, but I also, I don't like to say Alien Resurrection's the best Alien movie.
Sure.
Batman vs. Robin's the best Batman movie. You don't understand. For me, though, I legitimately believe that Too Fast, Too Furious is the best Fast and the Furious movie. It captures family unlike any other of films. The relationship between Brian and Roman in the beginning, they're fighting like brothers and they're throwing sand at each other. And they're wrestling, telling each other to shut up, and they bond during a race with, their first race is when they bond, and throughout the movie they're figuring, and then they just become family again. They become brothers, like real brothers, and you have a racing community. Everything in Too Fast, Too Furious is all about the cars, all the character development in the cars. So not having Vin Diesel there, I was still a big fan, but he went to go make Man Apart, like the Lobo family, and then he's like Man Apart. It's ironic. And so for me, just watching, John Singleton, man, Oscar nominated director, nailed this movie. Watching how alive Tyrese was. I was a big fan of Ludacris. I thought he had a really good presence on the screen, and they all came back later on. Devin Aoki, I thought was cool. I dug the vibe. I was from Florida, so I'm like, this looks like Miami, because I used to go down there. I'm like, this is there's trailer parks in it. I'm like, this is Florida. And so I didn't miss Vin. I really didn't. And Tokyo Drift, the 2 and 3 are my favorite films because Han's my favorite Fast and Furious character. I think he is awesome. And then 2, I loved the car chases. I loved how alive. I like Brian's dynamic with Roman better. So I didn't miss him. Long answer to that question. I did not miss Vin Diesel one bit. I was on the Too Fast, Too Furious train, and I don't like all the hate because it's not fair.
Well, it's, the thing is, first of all, I think you're right. When John Singleton stepped in, especially now going back, you watch the very first one and then you watch this one. Just if you can put all the other ones out of your mind, there's a noticeable uptick in energy and in color, almost to use like a kind of a simile. It's almost like going from Burton's Batman to Schumacher, because all of a sudden every car that you have, it's not just a black car and a green car. It's like a pink car, a yellow car. Like immediately aesthetically the palette changes, and like you said with Florida, it's such an interesting setting because everything is overcast. This entire movie is shot overcast, which just kind of already makes it feel just a little bit different than the Los Angeles setting, and I kind of feel like that energy immediately like wakes you up a little bit.
It absolutely does. And John Singleton, all right, so there's so many little touches people don't notice. When Brian enters the race, his car is letting off steam. That's John Singleton letting everyone know that Brian is the bull. He is the stud of the race. So when his car shoots steam out, they did that on purpose to make him seem like the bull, the boss. And the way he filmed these race scenes, some of the CGI looks a little funky, but he wanted them to seem like anime, Speed Racer, and Gran Turismo. So that's why you have the different elements included in this. You have green screen, you have CGI, you have practical. And like you said, he captured the outfits of Florida. Like I love Cole Hauser's goons. They wear just the Florida shirts. That's what you see. It's authentic. I think John Singleton got it. I love how diverse the cast is. It feels like everyone gets each other's backs. Like they're family, they're friends, and I don't know. That's what, like, in the Fate of the Furious, like Dom's Elise, I think his baby mama. She gets murdered because
it's so confusing, by the way. I'm like, his baby mama, who he's not with, but he had a son, but the son's name after his friend, who's not dead in the movies, but in real life. So it's kind of, it's bizarre.
Yeah. And they kill her. So, cause he's back with Letty and you need to get rid of her. It's not family. It's just globetrotting. And like Statham was a serial killer. Like he murdered 40 cops in Furious 7. And then he's cool now. Like The Rock's like, we're brothers. Like, what? I love those movies, by the way. I own them all, and I've researched them, and I've talked about them, and I praise them, and I adore them. But I guess I'm like the jaded Snyder fan. We worked with a lot of angry DC fans, and actually they were angry before MCU took over. I mean, like '89, they were writing letters, and just Batman fans are angry in general. But for me, I feel like them in regards to Too Fast, and like, the movie sucks. Like, it's pretty good. It does what it needs to do, and I think Singleton nailed it. I keep saying that, but I love it.
It's funny because it's like, the definition of sucks seems to have kind of a moving scale, because, I think what people, the thing that kind of blows my mind, and honestly, I said this on a Screen Junkie show, and I truly mean it. I think after Hobbs and Shaw, like, I'm done with Fast and Furious. I don't think there's anything left in it for me. Like, I got what I needed from it. But it's moving to a place where, everyone was like, they should go to space. And then I think Tyrese or someone did an interview. We're like, yeah, we're going to space. And everyone was like,
Michelle Rodriguez.
Yeah. And it's like, Michelle Rodriguez. Yeah, That's who it was. And it's like, at a certain point in this franchise, I feel like and when I say we, I mean the general public, we started loving this thing ironically. And I just am too old and I don't have time to love anything ironically anymore. And I think space is just kind of like the notion of Hobbs and Shaw and seeing where it is, where it's just like, there are no stakes anymore. And
it's Universal Soldier and Transformers.
Yeah. It's like, there's a difference between that ridiculous, whereas Too Fast, Too Furious, even if it's even if it's cheesy and corny, it still believes in itself. It still believes in the stakes in which it is. We're not talking about nuclear missiles. Like, honestly, when you really think about it, they're trying to catch a drug dealer, and if he gets away, shrug, oh well, we'll get him another time. It's the stakes are so personal as opposed to big. So it's like, I believe in these movies because they still believed in what they were doing, if that makes sense. Like Too Fast, Too Furious, I believe the characters believe that the stakes that they have in this movie to clear their records is real and they feel it. Whereas, you get all the way to the ridiculousness of Hobbs and Shaw, where the characters flat out tell you like, it's a missile. Don't worry about it. It doesn't matter. Like, as soon as Ryan Reynolds told me that the stakes didn't matter within the first 10 minutes of that movie, I was like, then why am I watching this?
Yeah. No, and these are two guys, right? They have a past. And I like how Tyrese is like, he hates cops. Like he thought that Brian brought him down. He has this, and like the whole thing is just about getting that ankle bracelet off his leg and having his record cleared, and for Brian to get back in the force. And like, I love that the biggest robbery in this movie is of a cigar cutter, and he gets caught. Like Carter Verone's like, hey man, you got my cigar cutter, and like that's the biggest robbery, and the biggest, like, a guy gets threatened with a rat in a bucket. You don't even
Can we talk about the rat in the bucket, by the way? Because as I was rewatching this, I was like, it's got to be hard. At this point, it was 2003. It's got to be hard for any screenwriter to write a mafiosa type guy who does some sort of like, I'm going to torture you for a second, but then let you go. A rat in a bucket with a flame torch. Like, I mean, you really had to kind of like throw a couple darts and do some Mad Libs to come up with that one. But it's like, again, at that point in the movie, you're like, yeah, that sounds about right. Like, I buy the reality of this moment right now.
They did that thing where it's like first name, middle name, or first name, date of birth, and then like year of birth. And then that's what they picked it. Rat, bucket, flamethrower. Like, they could have gotten alligator, air balloon, like strapped to a semi. Like, they just picked from those and they got it. And it's a cheap gag. I mean, that's a cheap gag, but it's effective with the sound design, and you feel it. And then they pick it up in the little scratches. Like my wife, I watch horror movies with her, and I'm jumping all over the place. I'll use her leg to block my eyes. Like, I tried to watch a horror movie last night because I was working late, and I was like, I can't do it. I freak myself out. So when she sees that scene, you don't even see much. It freaks her out. It's good sound design. It's effective. You see it. And it's just another example of Singleton thinking everything out. He just, and like you said, the stakes are real. These guys, like, I don't know, they could be shot by these. Well, I like the goons because they seem like Carter Verone's best friends from back in the day, and they're somewhat capable.
Which I will say, like, you have to acknowledge, and I get it, 2020 is a very different year even than that long ago, but there's a lot of I think racial stereotyping and jokes in this movie that would not fly in Fast and Furious 9. I'll say that. I think Tyrese just kind of, I think he takes it to a 10. He's like, oh, taco. I'm just like, ooh, yeah. All right, take it down a notch, Tyrese. Which, by the way, let's talk Tyrese, because I think Tyrese, when you think of Fast and Furious now, you think of Vin Diesel taking it way too serious. I mean, even back then, look, he wanted this to be, The Godfather Part 2. He said as much. But now
you get De Niro.
He couldn't get De Niro, so he's like, I don't know. But he's got Helen Mirren now, so.
Yeah. Judi Dench. Oh, wait, that was Chronicles of Riddick. Never mind.
Oh, God. Yeah. What is it about, like, really distinguished actresses that want to work with Vin Diesel?
Yeah.
There's an article for you. Figure that out.
I should. I mean, what else? I'll do it. I'll put it together. I'll figure it out.
But I think the other thing you think about is Tyrese is kind of, he's had some public, I don't want to call them meltdowns. He's had some public moments around Fast and Furious. And I think his character kind of took on, I'm lacking a better, I'm lacking a better simile than, like, I don't know if you ever used to watch Boy Meets World, but if you watch the first 2, maybe 3 seasons where Corey's older brother Eric is kind of like, he's cool, he's a little funny, and then he flips a switch and he's just like comically stupid for the rest of that show. Whereas Tyrese is like not as stupid in this. Like, I believe Roman more in this movie than I believe Roman just being the guy later on, you know?
You're gonna kill me! Oh my gosh! And then he kills 18 snowmobilers when they drive up to him.
Yeah, I just feel like Tyrese like was a better actor. I don't know if he had more to work with in this movie. Granted, he didn't have to share it with, 5 other leads, but
yeah, I mean they added in a lot of people. I mean, I just watched him in Black and Blue and I thought he was excellent. I think he's good. Like Baby Mama, his work with Singleton, I think he's a good actor. It's just you got to fight for screen time, and that's what his character has become. And like, so also like Paul Walker too. I feel like he always grounded the franchise, and I don't know. So I don't know if you know this, but it was on my wedding day. They called me to work on Furious 7, and I was like,
oh wow,
I'm not gonna do it. So no, but I knew a lot of people that worked on it. I got a chance to work on 6, 7. There are some cool chances in there, and I worked in the industry for years. And also, I just want to say, everyone loved Paul Walker, man. Every story I've heard about him on set, the nicest dude you ever meet. So I just want to throw that out there. I thought that was pretty cool. But no, with Tyrese, and I don't know, you could tell that he and Paul Walker had great chemistry, and they just I liked the brotherhood that they had. I liked that. But then when you have Vin Diesel taking up 40% of the screen time, when you have The Rock's biceps taking up 40% of the screen time, and then when The Rock and the two of them aren't talking anymore, then you got to split them up and you got to shoot them in different ways. And so, yeah, his character has kind of become that guy. Like, he's number 11. He's the butt of the jokes. And part of me doesn't hate that because he still grounds it for me. So in Fate of the Furious, when he's number 11, when he's being dragged on a door, he's my reminder of how insane the franchise has gotten. He's very analog when we see him. He's driving Destruction Derby. He's whapping cars. He's stealing cigar cutters. He's eating a lot. He's mad that the girl likes Brian and not him. So in the 6th one, like he grounds it for me. And so even though he's become a bit of a punchline in the comic relief, I always welcome him because it brings me back to what I love in the franchise, like the underdog, the scrappy, the like, we're not battling a nuclear bomb. We're not riding a nuclear bomb like in Doctor Strangelove. So I guess that's one thing I still like about his character.
I get, we keep talking about, grounding this stuff. And really when you go back to Too Fast, Too Furious, it's like, one of the criticisms that came out around the time of this movie was that like it had taken the first one, which was kind of, a guilty pleasure. And then they made it so ridiculous. But, in hindsight, seeing as where it went, it's like, this is the kind of ridiculous that I can stomach because it still feels organic to the world that you set up in the first one. And in terms of like, I'll call them gags for lack of a better term, like there's the parachuting out of a plane with your car and was it Abu Dhabi or something where they're driving
flying through the car window.
I still think with all of those ridiculous stunts, and I'm not going to act like those aren't fun, they are fun, but with all those ridiculous stunts, one of my favorite Fast and Furious gags is always going to be the warehouse, where they drive into the warehouse, they close the doors, and they're surrounded by the police, and they open the doors, and then hundreds of cars come out. Like, to me, that is yes-anding the first movie. It's intensifying, it's multiplying what you saw, it's bigger, it's bolder, but it's not like insulting my intelligence. It still works within the frame that you set up. And in that way, I feel like that's kind of a perfect example of how Too Fast, Too Furious ups the ante without like literally telling me like I'm an idiot, which is where I kind of feel like where we are right now.
And they still needed help. They needed the community. They needed Tej. They needed, which makes me so mad that Suki hasn't come back. Like,
what are they waiting for?
Yeah, it's like, well, I want Carter back. I mean, he's the dude is huge. Cole Hauser's huge on Yellowstone. Like, he'd be a great comeback. Like, have him come back and hunt Roman. But I like how they would have been caught. Right? They were cornered, and they would have been pulled over eventually, but they needed the help of the racing community. I like that. That's what family's about. And I mean, they installed an ejector seat. And when they cracked at the very end of the movie, when they drove that car off that ramp, and I love the behind the scenes stuff. You should watch it. The DVD's loaded with all this cool stuff. But they didn't get out of the car. They were in the car hurt. Like, they were about to get murdered.
Right.
And Monica saves them. Like, that's the ending of the movie where they're like, oh man, we're about to die. And this is a bad idea. and Monica saves the day. Like, I don't know. I guess it's grounded. They still need the help. Yes, they step it up because it's a sequel, but no, it's so much more human. I love my action films with that humanity in it. You know, that's just what I got.
Yeah, you know, one of the great things about any sort of like heist movie, and I consider the third act a heist of sorts. There's enough shenanigans and tomfoolery that I'll consider it a heist, but I always love in these heist movies the scene right before the third act starts, because it's usually a quiet, kind of somber look back at everything that we've done up until then. And this is one of my favorites, where it's, you know, they're kind of out on that bridge. It's kind of at the, you know, the magic hour. It's lit really well. You're right. There's a lot more connection with this one, and kind of with connection too. One of the things that the next movie had it, even though I personally consider part 3 almost like a spinoff. It's not, but in my mind, this kind of to me feels like the beginning of the end of the street racing community connections. And that's something that, look, obviously I don't know anything about cars. I don't know anything about street racing, but that's one of the things that I kind of felt was super unique. And now that's something that's almost been completely abandoned that I kind of miss about these movies.
And that scene you're talking about, it's out by the Keys, which is a ridiculous drive. That would take forever. But I'll let that go. But they're not like John Singleton didn't have them look each other in the eyes. Like they're these two kind of alpha guys sharing their feelings. They're kind of looking straight ahead. And at the very end, they give each other the high five and they kind of look at each other. I think it's played real. And I dig that about it. Like I love their relationship in it. They're sitting at a table telling each other to shut up in front of a drug lord. It's just, they're like brats, right? And I don't know. And this is another random thing. I don't know if you caught this about this movie, but during the commentary, Singleton was just talking about how he loved how much of a matinee idol Paul Walker looks like. And he kept comparing Paul Walker and Cole Hauser to Robert Redford and Paul Newman. And in the beginning of the film, they're calling Brian Bullitt. So they're calling him Steve McQueen. Like there's so many little cool things in this. And there's a lot of shots of eyes. I don't know if you've noticed this, but if you watch it again, Singleton loved Westerns. He loves the good and the bad and the ugly. So watch this movie again and focus on all the shots of the eyes in here, the way they look at each other, the way the frames are. I mean, that's like, this dude, he knew what he was doing. That's why I people watch it on such a surface level. And I guess not a lot of people are going to know about, you know, his Sergio Leone love, but I don't know.
But also too, it's just like, you know, there's kind of this misinterpretation almost where it's like, ugh, this feels like an 80s, 90s, like old, like it's old fashioned. It's like, yes, I think that's incredibly intentional. I don't think it's meant to feel like, you know, the ones that we're getting now. Like I think I read somewhere that he was very inspired by like Top Gun, and that scene that we're talking about feels very Top Gun-esque, and their relationship. I was almost kind of bummed, especially when you watch these kind of sequentially, that the Brian Roman relationship is never really quite the same as it is in this movie, obviously because he has to be like with Dom. But you're right. I tend to think that this is a stronger and personally healthier friendship for Brian than with Dominic, who they were like oddly like crushing on each other in a weird way.
What, in this movie?
No, just in the whole franchise. Like Dom and Brian, like they had this weird kind of like, I don't know. It seemed like a crush, but it didn't seem like, it seemed like Brian was kind of like infatuated with Dom, not even like sexually or anything, just like in terms of just like, oh, I kind of, this guy's awesome. But Roman feels more like a contemporary to Brian. To me, it feels like a more organic friendship. To me, there was more chemistry there, and we never really see it quite the same. Like they don't really have scenes together for the most part moving forward.
They kind of teamed him up with Tej later on. And then they kind of just started hitting on Nathalie Emmanuel in the later ones. Like that's kind of their role, to hit on her, which is annoying because how cool is it to have this badass female hacker and you make Tej do all the hacking? Like I hope that she starts to get more, I don't know. I hope she gets a jetpack or something. Because I was just thinking about this the other day. I love jetpacks in movies. So just give her one. They've never made a movie worse. Give her something to do. put Brian on 1-2, have him shoot the wrong direction. I don't know what I'm doing. If they go to
feel
space,
like if you gave me a long enough timeline, a jetpack has made some movie worse. I have to find it. I certainly didn't do Boba Fett any favors in Return of the Jedi. He went out like a punk with that jetpack.
I love how Boba Fett goes out.
Really? As a joke?
I think that's the way you kill Boba Fett, because he is the ultimate hunter. He's the ultimate badass. And or the tough guy, sorry. And he's a guy who caught them, who hunted them, who stares Vader in the eye. Like, you're not like, you don't want Luke taking him out like a chump, because that makes him look like a chump. I like Han taking him out by accident. I think it's random. I think it's different. It's a decent sight gag. I mean, I love people rolling into ancient beasts that are in the sand. Like, that's my second favorite thing in movies ever. And so just watching that, I don't know. I dig it, but I hope I'm not a contrarian, and I hope people aren't listening to this going, "Yeah, this guy's full of crap." But I guess maybe sometimes I get defensive of people hating on scenes, right? But once again, Too Fast, Too Furious.
The conviction. I mean, so we're talking about Boba Fett, who is the ultimate badass. But I would pose this movie has its own Boba Fett, a cinematic treasure Boba Fett, which is James Remar. Any movie that James Remar shows up in immediately is better for me. I think he made Blade Trinity salvageable by just showing up.
I love it. And him and Parker Posey need a spin-off.
Oh man, there's Blade Trinity is one I might have to do, because I rewatched the Blade trilogy in the last few months. I was like, you know what? This isn't as awful as I remember. There's some stuff that I wish was different, but for the most part, I liked where that one went.
So I like Blade Trinity until I watch Blade 1 and 2. Then I get mad how much they sideline Blade in the third film. It really annoys me. But Parker Posey, she put her work in. She kicks her hench lady in the face. Oh, it's beautiful. I love Parker Posey in that. She makes everything better. She should have been Boba Fett.
She should have been in Fast and Furious. Maybe she will be.
Oh my gosh.
Maybe she'll be in one of these. I mean, they did, well, I don't want to say they, because maybe it was her choice, but they did Eva Mendes a little dirty by just giving her a post-credit comeback and then nothing besides that. I have to think she's not super busy.
She's this extremely capable agent in this movie who works with his drug dealer, sets up all his races, and then they kind of ditch her. Like, that's not... Because, I think they're like, oh, well, where would she fit? And it's, well, I don't know. She could fit. Okay. I was on a walk with my wife. We were enjoying the leaves. They're unbelievable. And we were talking about it. And Hobbs and Shaw is about two men in their late 40s figuring out that working together is a good thing. That's the plot of Hobbs and Shaw. At the end, they're like, wait, if we fight together, we can beat Idris Elba. And then they both look like their minds are blown. Oh, wow. Like, oh, gosh. Don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody. And Too Fast, Too Furious, Brian and Roman hate each other, but then they make up after that first drive, and then they realize, hey, the cops want us out. The cops aren't helping us. The criminals aren't helping us. We're in a lot of trouble. It's up to us. And they get a plan, like halfway through the movie. And then they make that chat. They make up. Like, it's a movie about brotherhood and stuff. And it's not just, hey, man, let's team up. It's like, have you seen basketball? They play together. Did you know that? Like, there's teamwork on a football field. It's not just one person. Like, they're shocked to learn that. And I don't know. That's why another comparison between the two. I just love the teamwork. It's where else? Like, maybe you get Han and Shane from Tokyo Drift. I like their dynamic, the kind of mentor kid.
Oh, it's not Shane Black.
Yeah, it's something Lucas Black.
Lucas Black. Yeah.
Yeah. I like that mentor relationship because Han's just looking out for this kid. He's not a father figure. And I dig it. And I don't know. It's just watching their friendship. James Remar, Ajax, Warriors, one of my favorite movies. Also, that movie I was watching, The Black Coat's Daughter, it's one of the best horror movies of the last 10 years. And I'll fight somebody for that. I'll fight him on a craggly rock and with Billy, and we'll learn teamwork. But he's in that movie I was watching last night and I had to turn off. And he's great. But whenever I see him, I'm like, Ajax, not
he was on the con circuit with us for a little bit. I got to moderate one of his panels, And I think I hijacked that panel and just asked him questions about the Phantom for about 15 minutes of that half an hour.
I love that bridge scene where he's just driving across.
The Phantom is great, and I guess
Williams is a treat in that movie.
That will be an upcoming episode of this show with Josh McCouga. We've already planned to talk about it, but I love that movie. I love James Remar, but you're right. When you're talking about The Rock and Jason Statham, kind of, by the time we get to their movie, their beef is like, you're short. Whereas like this one, like I understand the beef because it's like every time that the insults are flying, it's because, hey, I went to jail because of you. You were like my best friend and you like sent me to jail. Like, and anything can be solved by driving your car backwards on the freeway. I really think
and almost missing your exit. That's the best part about that whole scene. He's acting like an idiot and he almost misses his thing, and they wouldn't have been the people driving. They would have lost out because of that. Oh, it makes me happy.
I mean, do all drug dealers just all they do to test loyalty is set up drag races across the city?
I did.
Okay.
When I was running meth lads in the countries of Florida, I would have people do ATV races because that's how you deliver meth to things. So I would set up this thing. I would have, I'd pay people to disrupt them in the middle. I'd key the cops in on it so they could get some arrests. They help me, I help them. You lose a couple, but
okay.
I mean, ATVs, I don't care about the people.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
sure.
It's dangerous, but yeah, that's what I did at least. But I would put like a hoagie in there, not like a cigar. That's expensive.
You
think I'm lying? I mean,
I believe you. Cigars are expensive.
I've had many lives, Billy Business.
We've talked a lot about cast members in this movie. One cast member that they offered to come back, who said no thank you, that is not Vin Diesel, was Ja Rule. They offered him $500,000 and he said, "Nah, I'm worth more than $500,000." Granted, he only made $15,000 on the first one. They offered him $500,000 for this one. He said no. And then he went and did Firefest. I kind of feel like if you were to trace the fall of Ja Rule, you would have to take it all the way back to declining to be in Too Fast, Too Furious.
Yeah, I love when Singleton tells a story. He's like, yeah, he kind of punked out. But think about when this movie was made, though. Ja Rule in 2003, like Ashanti and all those people, he was everywhere.
Yeah.
They had a good, 2-3 year run of just, they were it. Right. After No Limit kind of fell down, he sort of took over from them. Right. So
clearly, more than I do.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, he was huge. So I have satellite radio and I have the 2000s channel and it's just Ja Rule songs and Ashanti and stuff. And with J-Lo, like the way you he was everywhere. So, yeah.
And Ludacris was not the Ludacris we know and love at that point. When this movie came out, he was known, but I wouldn't say he was like Luda known like he is now.
Yeah. I mean, he was good in this movie too. That's his first movie. I think he was really hungry. I think Singleton worked with him really well. I liked the relationship that he had with Sookie. Like they seem to just kind of be hanging out all the time playing cards. Now he's a hacker, the greatest hacker on the planet. But no,
he had like a tech guy in this movie. Like the Asian mechanic, and now I guess he just he does like nuclear code hacking.
Dude, so we did a trailer talk on Movies, Films, and Flix about Fast 9, and we just talked about how happy we were that the crew from Tokyo Drift is back. I don't know if you saw in the trailer. So all those guys are going to be in it again. Han, Black. The another dude that was in it, a lot of Justin Lin staples. So that when I saw my favorite crew was coming back, that's what makes me happy. Like I didn't care about flying cars or Vin Diesel falling 50 feet into a flower truck and then that's Bloodshot. I love that movie.
I still have not seen it.
Oh, it's so good. Oh man.
Is it good or is it ironic fun?
So I'm very earnest. Like so, I joke around a lot, but I don't know. For some reason, I don't have that irony in me anymore. Like I just like to watch a movie and enjoy it. But what I like about it is the director's really good. He comes from an effects background. They had Weta on this movie. And then they also had this J.J. Perry, one of the best stunt coordinators on the planet. He does Captain America Civil War. He's just some of the biggest movies ever made. He did the fights in Haywire, which I think is one of the best action movies. So there's this really cool flower fight. Then you get Lamorne Morris in there from New Girl as a hacker. And he's just a live wire. He's so much fun. Then you have Isa Gonzalez, who I'd love to see in more movies. I think she's really good. Actually, Vin gave her the blessing to go work on Hobbs and Shaw. He doesn't care about like the feud. And so she was Madam M in Hobbs and Shaw.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a low budget, like $35 million movie with some inventive set pieces, a great stunt coordinator, a great second unit coordinator. And there's enough in there to really, and there's, in the beginning, you're like, ooh, like that. Vin Diesel shouldn't wear helmets. Like helmets are just too weird in his head. But eventually when you learn the plot of the movie, you're like, oh, that's why they did it. I'm telling you, like and someone's like the fight scenes aren't poetic and ballet-esque. I'm like, this is a Vin Diesel movie. Like what? This isn't Iko Uwais in The Raid looking like a panther inhabits him, like took over his soul and just makes him the best fighter on the planet. Like this is Vin Diesel punching people. So it's not going to be balletic action. I don't know. I like it. That's my pitch for Bloodshot.
Very important that we got that in this because I feel like we weren't talking about Vin Diesel enough. But one thing I do want to talk about real quick, which is technically another movie. This started I'm not going to call it the grand tradition because I think it's only happened twice, but this started the short film that leads into a Fast and Furious film with the Fast and Furious turbocharged prelude, which is a silent movie that connects dots that, unless you have been in a severe car accident and you are like really mentally incapacitated, I don't know how you couldn't put two and two together. But I guess if you really just want to see a guy just on the run for 5 minutes with no dialogue, it's available to you.
I was annoyed for watching it. I put it on and my DVD for this, there's a separate DVD that comes from it in a little thing. And it's a separate making of. Did you have a separate disc in yours?
I bought like the Blu-ray, like the 1 through 6 or whatever at the time, so I don't think so.
Have you seen The Graduate?
Of course.
You know when he's floating in the pool with his arms behind his head?
Yeah.
That's how I felt when I saw that extra disc in the Too Fast, Too Furious DVD case. It's the greatest moment of my life. And so I was staring at the screen for that prelude. I was like, this is bad. I think he has a twin brother that was in there, and you just kind of...
The same brother who I think completed some of the shots in Furious 7.
Yeah, I mean, he's from far away. He's Paul.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he pulls those shots off well, but I'm like, this is pointless. I'm busy. And when things waste my time, I get annoyed. I'm like, I don't like this. And so my notes are like dumb. Like I think I wrote something like not worth it. I wrote some...
It's like him driving across it's basically how he got from Los Angeles to Miami, which is like, yeah, you just left because you were on the run. I get it.
He drove.
Yeah. I get it. Why do we need 5 to 10? I don't remember how long it was. It felt really long.
Listen, if this is Michael Myers, I want that movie. You know, I did the math about his drive from Illinois to California. And I figured out, I know the car, I knew how much mileage was. So how many times he had to stop for gas. I want to watch Michael Myers pump gas. Like that's a road trip I'll watch, but I don't need to see how Brian O'Connor gets to Miami. I don't. Like he gets there. It's cool. Show me Jason Voorhees walking, right? Show me the critter ball going across the United States, or Tremor trying to make its way across. Like that's gonna be weird. I don't know. Give me those.
The next one that they did, I think it was either before Fast and Furious 4 or 5. I can't remember. Which was kind of like the Vin Diesel and what's her name, Michelle Rodriguez, like they kind of like unofficially or officially get married. I don't know. I just remember watching it the very first time it came out. I was like, oh, that probably should have been the movie. That seems like it was important information to know.
Yeah, that was 4 because they did the gas truck. They stole from the gas truck on the hill, and then Han was back. That's the greatest part. I was like, Han, Yes, I picked up somebody next to me and ran around the theater. This is before stadium seating, so it was easier. So I picked him up, ran around, and that made me happy. But yeah, then he's kind of like, we got to separate because we're the heat's on us. And she's like, well, ride or die. And he's like, well, I'm gonna ride. You're gonna probably die, and you do for a while, then you come back because we're family. But yeah, he leaves her, and then he gets shot later in the movie and he forgets about it. And Gal Gadot's in that movie.
She's in a couple of them.
Yeah,
and then she just dies. She dies like a punk.
She's still around.
She will be eventually, I'm sure.
Have you seen Halloween 5? A hermit got her, a nice hermit, and is raising her back to health. And we'll
probably get her back from the dead before we get Suki back, like just perfectly healthy and fine. Is that actress like dead or something? Is she in jail? There's got to be a reason why they aren't bringing her back.
She's cool in this movie. I like her when she's yelling. She's like, and she's like, get some, and just having fun with it. Let's see.
Devin Aoki. She's a fashion industry icon, apparently.
And she's in Built BTS. Is that the Korean band BTS?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So she's in their music video. Oh, wait, Stevie Aoki featuring BTS. Devin Aoki. Yeah, but she was good. I liked her in this. Why not bring back Monica? Also, bring back Carter Verone. I like this character.
She had a really great. She was in Sin City like a year or two afterwards.
Miho.
Yeah. So I thought she was like on the upswing.
Yeah, dude, it's weird how they get a hold of people for a while, then they kind of run them out of town. They're like, all right, we're going to try to make you work. But I liked her. I liked the vibe of this movie. I thought she fit in really well. Like, have her come back. Her and Ludacris hang out. I don't know. Like, actually, she doesn't need to be. Actually, that's reductive. Her character doesn't need to be like set up with somebody. She just comes back as her own person as a badass.
I guess she didn't. This was like before. I find the words. This was before a lot of, this was still a little bit in the dark ages of the 90s, where it's like women didn't necessarily have agency, and if they did, it was played for like not a shock value, but it's like the first thing that pops into my head is like Jurassic Park, where she's Hammond doesn't want her to go. Like, it's played for a feminist statement as opposed to just like, yeah, they're just another hero that's going to go do an action. So Devin Aoki in this movie, she just kind of like, she's there. She's like Ludacris's girlfriend, I think.
And she gets arrested at the end, at least.
She drives. She drives pretty well because she drives one of the decoy cars. So it's like, I don't know what role she would be if you were to bring her back, but it's like, yeah, if you can turn Ludacris into like, a national, security risk hacker, I'm sure you can find something for Suki to do, because that's like her and Ja Rule, and I get it, Ja Rule's never coming back. Those are the only two kind of loose ends that never came back, right?
Carter Verone, Cole Hauser, he's in jail.
He is, and he did say he would get them when he got very Scooby-Doo like,
We did an episode of this on Movies, Films, and Flix, and he's Argentinian. That compound he's at, that's bigger than Scarface compound. You don't have that compound in Miami and be a minor person. They're not taking him to jail. They're dropping him off somewhere, and they're like, all right, guys, like, this is like, you get to take a cab home. That's your prison sentence. He's like, oh man, not a limo. And they're like, yeah, just take a cab. That's what you get. He's out there. And listen, I would love to see him like come back like full. He's in Yellowstone now. It's complete. Dude, he's a ball. He's a fist fighting legend. I think he could take out Hopper from Stranger Things if they fist fought. Like, that'd be woo. Oh man, what a great fist fight. But yeah, bring him back. Like, have him hunt Brian or Roman, or well, not Brian, but have him hunt Roman. So
you're gonna bring Brian back. I guarantee you. They'll find a way, even if it's so distasteful. They will do it.
I hope not. And I guess people laugh about Carter Verone being from Argentina, but they're like born in Argentina. I mean, maybe his parents weren't Argentinian. Like, who knows where he's there? Maybe his father was. But he only was in the movie because Singleton had him in Higher Learning, and he loved Cole Hauser's face. He's like, just look at that face. Like, look at those eyes, man. He's just saying, like, this guy, like Lee Van Cleef, he said he kind of looks like, so he shoots his eyes like that. So that's why he brought him in to play that role. But now, what's wrong? He's a good villain, right? Like there's he knows he gets his cigar cutter stolen. I mean, that's pretty good. I'd say bring him back.
I mean, this is like, again, I tweeted this out the other day, and like, full disclosure, we're recording this in November of 2020. The elections just happened, and the U.S. presidential elections, for my overseas friends. And I tweeted the other day, I was like, I kind of wonder if storytelling in general is going to kind of reflect the last kind of 4 years over here, which is, I think a lot of people are kind of looking more towards these black and white, good versus evil stories, as opposed to like the sympathetic kind of villain that you kind of understand. And, if we could just one bad day, we could fix it all. And this kind of feels like a throwback to like, I just want a villain who's just bad. There's nothing about Carter that's like, oh, he had a rough childhood, or, oh, like, he's actually complicated. It's like, no, he's just bad. And like, to me, that's it's weird that that's like a refreshing take on a villain. It's like, I don't want to sympathize. I don't want to understand. I don't want to know his backstory. I don't care. I just like that he's a bad guy. And I almost wonder if like we're going to turn the corner and come around and have more of these. I don't want to call them simplistic, but a little bit more like less morally ambiguous kind of characters.
Those are my favorite. Think about the Raid. You have the main drug dealer and Mad Dog. They're going to murder people. Dread. You have Mama. This is, like, she has a backstory, right? And you get it, but she's evil towards the end. She's become evil. Like, she's not turning good. And I think having that simplicity is nice. Like, it's good to have the good versus bad. I do get tired of that. Like, you're supposed to like. So in Aquaman, there's this pirate, Black Manta, and he's murdering people. And then he loses his dad after murdering people. But then you spend this cheeky montage with him. And you're like, what is happening? And then he murders a bunch of people in Italy. And you're like, wait, what's happening? Like, do I like this guy? Do I not like this guy? And at the end, King Orm just turns out he wanted his mom. He's going to become good now after like murdering millions, like tons of, causing trillions of damage in waves and causing a war that murdered thousands of people and destroyed an entire race of sea creatures after Aquaman exploded from the Earth's crust with a 2.5. Never mind. But yeah. I don't know. Sorry.
Just like you're right. And it's like, it's funny that like comic book movies are kind of like the first thing that you think of, which is like, like, I don't know if like, I'm kind of over the Thanos of it all, where it's like, poor guy, like I see where he's coming from. It's like, I kind of just, I admire the late 80s. Like, I almost feel like you could retool this if you had to. You could retool Too Fast, Too Furious and make this like a Lethal Weapon movie. I really think you could. Like, it fits that formula, and I kind of miss that formula.
The two villains in the MCU that work for me are Baron Zemo, because he's playing his wife's voicemails, and he just turns full heel. Like, he doesn't want redemption. He just wants to kill them all. And I love that. And
still
I like
sympathetic, but
yeah, I guess he's
sympathetic. They both are. They both are.
Yeah, I guess there's gonna be no redemption for him. Like, I'm gonna murder everybody. Oh no, yeah, you're right. Never mind. And then Killmonger. I mean,
same with Killmonger. Like, Killmonger is a tragic figure. I would say they're both tragic, honestly. Maybe the Disney Plus thing will undo Zemo with, or they'll muck it up a little bit. But I kind of feel like, when's the last time, like, the last movie where like the bad guy was just bad was like, oh my God, you'd have to go back to like The Incredible Hulk or Obadiah Stane and like even Mickey Rourke. It's like, well, yeah, like his dad got, kicked out of the country because of Tony Stark. Like, I get it. Anytime you can be like, I get it, I'm kind of done with that. But like Obadiah Stane is like a great villain, because you're just like, he's just a power hungry a-hole,
Mm-hmm. He's physically threatening in that movie, Jeff Bridges. There are scenes where he's towering. He looks like bulked up and strong, and when he goes after Pepper, I buy into it.
I think the greatest line in that whole movie is like, Tony Stark built us from scraps in a cave. Like, I love that. I'm so glad it made a reappearance in Far From Home.
Oh yeah, that guy comes back, right?
It's Peter Billingsley. It's the kid from A Christmas Story. Yeah,
gonna shoot your eye out.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if you know this, but back in the day, I analyzed. So there's a Bloomberg article that's great. There's a Mind the Gap article, and they have all this data. Then I watched all the movies again to make sure all the numbers were right. And I came up with all these categories. And I figured out that the Fastest and Furious Fast and Furious movie is Fast 6. But after I got a video coming out for the film theorist about Too Fast, Too Furious. I'm not, or the whole franchise. I'm not going to give away what we went towards. But I did some different math and I figured out like Too Fast, Too Furious. I think another reason I love it, it's the most car heavy of the franchise, I would say. I mean, that and Tokyo Drift. So I guess for me, you look at like there's chases in Hobbs and Shaw, but they're not
they're not even memorable. I saw that in the theaters and I remember very little. And I will say, you know, like, just because someone will point it out, like, yes, Idris Elba, I think his character is like, I'm bad because I'm bad. And I'm not saying that those elements don't exist. What I'm saying is you also have to, you know, like, I will go to Crazy Town with you in a heartbeat, but you have to follow your own logic. And the minute that you break the fourth wall, essentially, and tell me that everything I'm watching doesn't matter to the characters that are in it, then I'm not on board anymore. Honestly, like, I wonder if I would feel differently about Hobbs and Shaw if that diner scene with Ryan Reynolds was different or wasn't in there, where he basically was like, oh yeah, nuclear, it's terrible, it's horrible, don't worry about it, we do this every week. Like, was it worth that one laugh to really remind me of what this franchise has become, which is like, it went from kind of like Sharknado, where it was like, we the people turned that into an ironic joke, and now it's like the filmmakers are in on the joke with Fast and Furious and they're winking at me. I'm like, no, you turned something that was cool, but it's like your parents joining Facebook, like it's dead now, you know?
And there's some interesting stakes in this movie, I think. So in the opening car chase, I would be so pissed at Tej. Like, so in the beginning, remember that guy's like, I don't think I can pay rent after this race. Like that's a cool. And then when he lifts up the bridge, I'd have fist fought Tej. If I had to jump that bridge, I would have fist fought him. Like, cars are getting broken. Things are breaking. And then Brian gets caught. He gets that electrical shock in his car, which comes back in 6 later on. And he gets stopped and caught. And like later on, they have the race and that guy in the Mustang dies and that Corvette flips. And then they're almost losing to those muscle car guys. And I don't know. It's like a scrappy underdog tale. You know what? Maybe that's what I like is it's just kind of in the first one, they're, you know, kind of fighting against the system, their family, but they're thieves, but they're not all powerful. They still lose to a truck driver. In this one, it's like they need help and they lose and they get caught and they're not like all strong. I guess that's maybe what I lean towards in it. So watching Fate of the Furious when they're out racing a nuclear submarine and I don't know.
I hear you, because I think that's what makes Fast and Furious to me so relatable. It's like, here are these people that are they're the underdogs, like you said, and by the time that we get to really Fast 6, I think Fast 5, they're still kind of like an underdog in the sense of like, if we can just pull off this one thing, I think we'll be good. But I think the whole momentum shift changes when the government comes to them and it's like, you guys are the best at XYZ thing. It's like, oh, you're no longer like, you are a part of the system that you were that was oppressing you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It drinks some Belgian beer from this keg of mine.
The fact that there was no Corona, was it in the last one?
Yes. So there's only Corona. So I did I don't know if you remember this, but one of my huge data posts was I analyzed all the Corona drinking. And I figured out like if they make more money or less, and it was really popular. I figured out that Corona is only in California. So when they're in New York, they don't do California. When they're down in Mexico, they're not drinking Corona. When they're in Europe, they're not drinking Corona. So Corona is in the first one when they're in California, and then Corona comes back in the fourth one. They drink that there, and then it comes back in 6 when they are at the barbecue. So anything in California is when they have Corona, but other countries, they do other things.
So there is some Corona continuity.
Yeah, there is. I know everything I know the engine revving. I know how much time do they sit outside of cars? How much time are they working on their cars? How many bicep shots are there? How many gratuitous party scenes there are? That's, I don't know.
There was not enough partying in Too Fast, Too Furious. I wish there was more.
Now, in this, there's very gratuitous shots, right, in Too Fast, Too Furious, but it felt very 2001. You go to some of these car shows back in the day, and the crowds look pretty familiar from Too Fast, Too Furious to this one. It's not like a high scale fashion gratuitous shot in 6 where there's just people dancing. And it's not even a club. I don't know why they're dancing in Fast 6. It's just people dancing in a fountain. Like, who are you? Like, are you really having that much fun? At least in Too Fast, Too Furious, you kind of understood the car. I don't know.
I mean, I want to see the stats on sleeves versus sleeveless.
I did that for Kurt Russell movies.
And what was the consensus?
Well, it's better sleeveless. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, everything's better sleeveless. Let's be real here. But look, I think, as we're kind of wrapping up here, I think ultimately Too Fast, Too Furious to me is the prime example of what I think silly Fast and Furious should be for me. It still fits within this world that you've set up. It still feels plausible is maybe too generous of a word, but it feels more real. The fact that they kind of like Mickey Mouse together this car at the end with like this homemade ejector seat and everything feels it feels a lot more believable than where we are, like you said, chasing down nuclear submarines on ice with government Humvees, all that stuff. Like, all of that feels too far. This one is still silly fun. It still feels real enough to them. Maybe not to me, but to them it feels real enough. And I kind of love, like you said, like this one still is about the people. It's about Brian and Roman, them coming together, them adding some new people to the clique. Honestly, I kind of thought that's where the franchise was going to be the further adventures of this group of people.
I love that.
It didn't shake out that way, and that's okay. But Fast and Furious, I saw the trailer. I saw Hobbs and Shaw, and I was like, I didn't like that. And then I saw the trailer for Fast and Furious 9, and it just kind of feels like maybe this franchise has passed me by. And I don't want to crap on it because I think Fast and Furious does something that a lot of franchises either don't do or took way too long to do, which was they're diverse and they appeal to a lot of different people that are not, they're not me. They're not straight white men. It appeals to a lot of different people. I just think for me, like, I think I'm punching out because I would rather I'd want 3 Fast, 3 Furious instead of Furious 9.
I'm happy Justin Lin is back. I'm not the biggest. So 6 is when it got. So Justin Lin left at 6, and so I'm a fan of 7. I'm a fan of 8, but they're too big. They don't feel like as. I think Justin Lin might take 9 back to a little. It's going to be huge, but I think he can find that humanity. He loves Han. He loves his Tokyo Drift characters. He loves some of these characters. I mean, in Fast 5, you still get some of the relationships. So I have a lot of hope. And the main thing I want to get across in this episode, and I really thank you for bringing me on, it's that John Singleton did an excellent job with this movie. It was rushed into production. They have 2 different scripts. One script was for Vin, if he wanted to do it. The other one was for Paul Walker. He went in, he brought in fresh faces. I mean, Tyrese, Devin Aoki, Ludacris, James Remar. I mean, Ajax, dude's awesome. And it's just, I think he made the races good. He made the world alive. He brought some fun diversity to it. He understood the world. There's a scene where Brian and Roman are just kicking a henchman on the ground for about 45 seconds. Like that's what people do. They just stomp people. Like when you're out fight, like they're stomped. They just kick him. You think it's going to stop and they go for another 30 seconds. There's a lot of authenticity to this movie. I love how childish, like they're punching each other in the arm. Like in between takes, Paul Walker and Tyrese are slugging each other in the arm. It just feels more lifelike and just fun. And I don't like the negative reviews. I don't like that it comes last. I think John Singleton went out there and made a very authentic, fun very Florida movie. And I think it's worth watching again without, because listen, expectations kill people, Billy. They really do. I don't like this movie because it's not what I expected. Well, maybe you should think about how you watch movies. But I think a lot of people were expecting, more something of the same, but they got something more live and different and vibrant in Too Fast. And so go back to it with expectations tampered. Don't go in it with like a real like hipster ironic laugh. Just enjoy the authenticity of it. We don't get movies like this, and I dig it. I think it's fun. I just watch the eye shots. Watch the car shots. You'll see all the influences in this. And they do a lot of their own stunts. And a lot of it is still like in camera. A lot of these things are in camera. Nowadays, it's like green screen. Like they're on an iceberg. They weren't on an iceberg, like, or flat sheets. Like this was in camera, car chases, car wrecks, that Corvette accident happened on accident. That Corvette got destroyed. It wasn't supposed to. And so it's analog, it's fun, and it's human. And I think it's really worth another watch and another go around.
Those were beautiful parting words. I don't even think I can top it, so I'm not going to try. That was our take on Too Fast and Too Furious, which deserves a 2 shot from you. Watch it again. Yeah. Thank you so much, Mark. You are one of the most interesting film kind of writers that I know right now. Some of your stuff, like it seems like, oh, he's really going the distance for this bit. But then you read it and you're like, but that's actually really interesting. So where can the people like find just all the really interesting stuff you're doing?
Okay, so you can go to moviesfilmsandflix.com, moviesfilmsandflix.com. I put up my reviews there and a lot of my weird data articles. I got some funky ones coming up. Oh my gosh, I can't wait. I'm starting to write more reviews too. Also, you can go to Rotten Tomatoes. I work on their Rotten Tomatoes is Wrong podcast. I also work on the Versus video that they do. It's doing really well. Like one of them has like 6.2 million views. It's doing really well. We're on the Peacock now. We're on YouTube. We got some exciting episodes coming up for that. I also write for the Film Theorists. I have a couple new episodes coming up. I also debunk Jason's teleporting. I wrote about Count Chocula's history. So you can go to Film Theory on YouTube, Matt, Pat, and the crew. Yeah. So I write for them. I do videos for them. And Movies, Films, and Flicks, my podcast. And Deep Blue Sea. So Movies, Films, and Flicks, we just took number 2 in Vietnam. We're number 1 in Namibia right now. We're big all around the world. We did Fantastic. Top 20. I think we've done top 25 in like 28 countries so far this year. And Deep Blue Sea, the podcast, is doing really well. Like Australia just picked up, Great Britain. We got some big guests coming on. Fingers crossed, we got some really big episodes coming up for Deep Blue Sea, the podcast. You were on Deep Blue Sea, the podcast. We talked about cargo shorts. So yeah, it gets weird, right? But it's a fun show. We love that it's unironic. We talk about weird stuff. But yeah, I guess I'm all over the place. So just type in Mark HOFMEYER writer and you'll see stuff.
All over the place is maybe the best way to describe you, Mark, but everything that you turn out is different and interesting than anything else anyone else is doing. So thank you so much for bringing your mock energy to the show. Thank you guys so much for listening. Once again, this is brought to you by Reboot It Season 3. Check it out on YouTube. And Season 4 really just getting going. We got a lot of good stuff coming up. Some movies that you guys have requested. Some stuff that I really wanted to do. And coming next week, it's the forgotten MCU entry. The one that we dare not speak of, but we will for about a full hour. The Incredible Hulk, the Edward Norton 2008 Hulk movie. That is coming next week. Can't wait to talk about that. Can't wait to see you guys all next week.